Alright, y'all, strap in because chapters 17 and 18 of Brave New World are the emotional boss battle we've been waiting for. It's a mix of deep philosophical vibes, raw existential drama, and a finale that's like getting hit by a truckload of feels. Let's go. So, it all kicks off with John and Mustafa Mond having this epic one-on-one debate that feels like the anime duel of the century. Picture them standing in a dimly lit room, with Mond casually leaning back, spitting straight up dystopian gospel, while John is pacing like a feral cat, clutching his Shakespeare quotes like they're attack cards in Yu-Gi-Oh! The topic? Whether life should be cozy and fake or chaotic and real. Mond is like, look, we ditched suffering, struggle, and all that messy human stuff because nobody likes angst. People are happier when they don't have to think too hard, so we gave them soma, feelies, and a world where everything's low-key mid but stable. But John's not buying it. He's basically screaming, life isn't supposed to be a chill Netflix binge, bro. It's supposed to have pain and beauty and growth, like when your favorite character dies, but it makes the story hit different. He pulls out all the stops, quoting Shakespeare like a dramatic theater kid who's about to drop an Oscar-worthy monologue. He even drags religion into it, saying, people need God. They need something bigger than themselves to grapple with, even if it's tough. And Mond? The guy just smirks and says, yeah, we tried that. Turns out, people would rather have their soma and guaranteed happiness. We edited out God like you skip filler arcs in an anime. Mond even flexes with receipts, showing John this banned book about religion and science. He explains how the world state kicked God out because, let's face it, in a world where no one gets old or sick or sad, nobody's out here looking for divine intervention. John keeps pushing back, saying that all the ease and comfort is fake. Give me the right to be miserable, he shouts, which is a hardcore thing to say, like willingly choosing hard mode in life's RPG just because it's more authentic. But Mond shuts him down, basically saying, alright, champ, you can have your misery, but don't come crying to me later. And John? He's done. He realizes the world state isn't going to change, and he doesn't want to play by their rules. So he pieces out, deciding to go full survivalist. Now we hit chapter 18, and John is out here living his into the wild fantasy. He finds this lighthouse way out in the middle of nowhere, and he's like, this is it. I'm gonna live off the land, away from all the fake, soulless vibes of civilization. At first, it's kind of peaceful. He's farming, meditating, and trying to purify himself from all the world state's toxic energy. But then, the guilt about Linda's death, and his whole existence, really, starts eating away at him. The guy's whipping himself with a belt, praying, and screaming Shakespeare lines at the sky like a protagonist in a tragic anime flashback. But of course, the peace doesn't last because, plot twist, people find him. A random world state journalist spots him, and before you know it, John becomes this weird celebrity. Crowds of people show up to watch the savage doing his thing, like it's some bizarre live stream. They're snapping pics, filming him with futuristic cameras, and making memes out of his suffering. It's gross, but also painfully realistic, like how people obsess over influencers having public breakdowns. John tries to keep them at bay, but the attention just snowballs. Lenina even shows up, and let me tell you, things go south. By now, John is so overwhelmed and broken that when Lenina tries to approach him, he snaps. He starts calling her names, shouting about how she's a symbol of everything wrong with the world state, and honestly? It's heartbreaking because Lenina clearly doesn't understand why he hates her so much. She's just as much a victim of this society as he is. What happens next is where the tragedy hits its peak. The crowd turns the whole scene into a party, and John gets swept up in this wild, orgy-like frenzy that's straight out of the world state's playbook. The guy who wanted nothing more than to escape the system ends up giving in to its worst aspects. The next morning, when he wakes up and realizes what's happened, he's crushed. The guilt and shame are too much for him. In the end, John takes his own life. It's one of the most gut-punch endings in literature because it's not just about his death, it's about what it represents. John was the one person who tried to stand up against the world state's artificial happiness, but the weight of it all broke him. His death is a haunting reminder that in a world that crushes individuality, even the strongest spirit can't survive. So there you have it. Brave New World ends on a bleak, soul-crushing note, but it's also a wake-up call. Huxley's basically saying, hey, don't trade your humanity for comfort. It's not worth it. It's heavy stuff, but also, it hits different in the best way. Alright, buckle up, because Wuthering Heights chapters 4, 5, and 6 crank the drama dial way up. It's like Bridgerton meets Wednesday, with all the dysfunction and Gothic chaos you could ask for. Nellie Dean, the real MVP of storytelling in this book, takes over and spills some major tea about the history of Wuthering Heights and its residents. We're talking childhood drama, toxic relationships, and enough mood swings to rival your favorite Netflix teen drama. So, Lockwood recovers from his not-so-warm welcome at Wuthering Heights, and back at Thrushcross Grange, he asks the housekeeper, Nellie, what's up with all the weirdness? She's like, oh, honey, you don't even know the half of it, and starts recounting the whole messy history of the Earnshaw family, Heathcliff, and how this whole nightmare got started. Think of her as the series narrator who's seen it all and isn't afraid to dish the dirt. We rewind to when Mr. Earnshaw, the previous owner of Wuthering Heights, randomly shows up one day with a stray kid he picked up during a trip to Liverpool. This kid is Heathcliff, and let me tell you, his introduction into the family is as awkward as it gets. Earnshaw's kids, Hindley and Catherine, are like, what's this? Heathcliff's described as dark-skinned and scruffy, which doesn't exactly endear him to the already bratty Hindley. Catherine's intrigued but not super friendly right away either. Earnshaw, however, is all about Heathcliff, treating him like his golden child right off the bat, which does not sit well with Hindley. Hindley starts bullying Heathcliff like it's his full-time job, and Catherine is kind of just doing her own thing, occasionally teaming up with Heathcliff but not fully taking his side. Heathcliff, for his part, stays quiet and broody, but you just know he's filing all these grievances away for later. He's the kind of character who remembers every insult like he's building a revenge playlist in his head. Flash forward a bit, and Earnshaw starts getting old and cranky. His health declines, and Hindley uses this as an opportunity to act even worse toward Heathcliff, which honestly feels like overkill. Heathcliff, however, has this vibe like, fine, bully me now, but your time is coming. Catherine, meanwhile, grows closer to Heathcliff. They start to form this weird, intense bond that's equal parts friendship and we're destined to ruin each other. You can already tell these two are going to be trouble. Then Earnshaw dies, and Hindley, now the head honcho, wastes no time turning Wuthering Heights into his personal frat house. He brings home his new wife, Frances, who's bubbly but also kind of shallow. She's all smiles and laughter, but let's be real, she's not exactly the warm and fuzzy type you'd expect to bring balance to this chaotic household. With Hindley in charge, Heathcliff goes from semi-adopted brother to live-in punching bag. Hindley demotes him to servant status and treats him like dirt, but Heathcliff just takes it in stride, like, don't worry, I'm playing the long game. As Hindley's busy being the worst, Catherine and Heathcliff grow even closer. They're like that pair of rebellious kids in every anime who always find a way to sneak off and do something wild. They run around the moors together, wreaking havoc, and basically bond over their mutual hatred of authority. Catherine, for all her wild energy, has a charm to her that even Heathcliff can't resist. It's clear they're two halves of the same chaotic coin. But then, drama strikes. Catherine and Heathcliff decide to spy on the fancy Linton family at Thrushcross Grange because, why not? It's like a couple of kids trying to peek into a VIP party they weren't invited to. Things go south real quick when a dog attacks Catherine, and the Lintons, Edgar and Isabella, take her in to recover. While Catherine's staying at the Grange, she gets a taste of the good life, luxury, manners, and people who don't scream at each other 24/7. It's a stark contrast to the mess back at Wuthering Heights, and she starts to feel conflicted. She loves the wild freedom of Heathcliff, but the comfort and status of the Linton lifestyle are tempting. When Catherine finally comes back home, she's like a whole new person. She's dressed up, polished, and talking about how great the Lintons are. Heathcliff, on the other hand, is like, what happened to the girl who used to jump fences with me? He's clearly hurt but doesn't show it outright, which is very on brand for his broody, Sasuke Uchiha's personality. Meanwhile, Hindley's life takes a turn for the worse. His wife Frances has a baby, Hairton, but she dies shortly after childbirth. This absolutely wrecks Hindley, and he spirals into an even darker, angrier version of himself. He starts drinking heavily and basically terrorizing everyone at Wuthering Heights, including his own kid. The whole house feels like it's about to implode from all the pent-up rage and dysfunction. By the end of these chapters, you can already see the storm brewing. Catherine's caught between two worlds, her wild, untamed connection with Heathcliff and the cushy, respectable life represented by the Lintons. Heathcliff is simmering with unspoken resentment, plotting his next move, and Hindley is a walking disaster. It's like watching a slow-motion train wreck where you can't look away because you know it's only going to get messier. So yeah, chapters 4, 5, and 6 of Wuthering Heights are peak Gothic drama. You've got love, betrayal, class conflict, and a house full of people who really need to work out their issues. It's dark, it's chaotic, and it's wildly addictive, kind of like binge-watching your favorite toxic drama series, except everyone's wearing Victorian outfits and the weather is always terrible. Alright, fam, buckle up, because chapters 7, 8, and 9 of Wuthering Heights are where the tea gets spilled and the drama hits a whole new level. If you thought the vibes were intense before, just wait, it's about to feel like the messy love child of a reality TV reunion and an angsty fantasy RPG. So, we kick off with young Catherine Earnshaw coming back to Wuthering Heights after a few months of leveling up her social skills at Thrushcross Grange with the Linton siblings, Edgar and Isabella. When she left, Catherine was the local tomboy, running wild on the moors with her BFF/ride-or-die Heathcliff. But now? She's all dolled up, prim and proper, like she just completed the princess training side quest. Heathcliff sees her stroll in and straight up doesn't recognize her at first. He's standing there like, who is this? And you can feel the emotional damage in his soul when he realizes it's Catherine. Thing is, Heathcliff didn't glow up while Catherine was gone. Nah, my dude's still rocking his messy, scrappy, I just fought a boss battle in the mud look, and Catherine notices. Instead of being sweet about it, she calls him out like, ew, Heathcliff, you're dirty, which is low-key the 18th century version of getting roasted in the group chat. Heathcliff's feelings are officially hurt, but he just broods in the corner because, let's face it, that's kind of his whole thing. Now, let's switch POVs for a sec. Nellie, the real MVP of this story, and our narrator, tells us that Catherine's time at the Lintons' house was basically a crash course in how to act fancy. The Lintons are rich, posh, and way more about sipping tea than throwing hands, which is the exact opposite vibe of Wuthering Heights. Catherine soaked it all up, but deep down, she's still the same wild, chaotic girl who vibes with Heathcliff's feral energy. So now she's caught in this identity crisis, like she's trying to decide between staying true to her punk rock roots or fully leaning into the gossip girl lifestyle. It's giving Serena versus Jenny Humphrey, and we're all here for the drama. Meanwhile, Hindley, Catherine's older brother and resident jerkface, is spiraling hard. Ever since his wife Frances died, dude's been off the rails, treating Heathcliff like trash and neglecting the entire house. Wuthering Heights is falling apart, and Hindley's parenting skills with his son Hareton are basically non-existent. It's like Hindley unlocked the self-destruct mode DLC and hit start. Nellie's trying to hold it all together, but even she's like, this place is a mess. Fast forward to Christmas, and the squad's having dinner at Wuthering Heights. Heathcliff is trying to vibe, but Hindley, because he's Hindley, goes full villain mode and bans Heathcliff from joining. Catherine, ever the queen of mixed signals, sneaks Heathcliff some food but then spends the rest of the night flirting with Edgar Linton right in front of him. Like, girl, read the room. Heathcliff's watching this whole thing go down, and you can practically see his heartbreak in real time. At this point, he's plotting his revenge arc like an anime villain. Later, Heathcliff tries to fix himself up so Catherine won't clown him anymore. He asks Nellie for help with looking more presentable, but when Catherine sees him, she can't stop laughing. Big oof for our boy. Heathcliff storms off, and you just know he's thinking, one day, they'll all regret this. Classic villain origin story. By chapter 8, the time skip energy is strong. It's been a few years, and Edgar Linton is officially Catherine's boo. She's leaning hard into the bougie Thrushcross Grange life, but her relationship with Heathcliff is still as messy as ever. Edgar's all soft-spoken and sweet, but Heathcliff is still out here radiating chaotic, tortured energy. Catherine's stuck in this love triangle that's less fun romantic drama and more how much emotional damage can one person take? Meanwhile, Hindley's continuing his downward spiral. Dude's gambling away the family fortune and turning Wuthering Heights into the medieval version of a frat house. Poor Nellie is left cleaning up everyone's messes, and Hareton, Hindley's kid, is basically being raised by vibes and bad decisions. Nellie tries to teach Hareton some manners, but Hindley's like, nah, let the kid be wild. It's a whole circus at this point. Then we hit chapter 9, and it's chef's kiss peak drama. One day, Hindley comes home wasted, again, and things escalate real quick. He starts waving a gun around, which, let's be real, is the last thing this house needs. Nellie grabs Hareton to keep him safe, but the situation is straight up dangerous. Hindley's ranting, Hareton's crying, and everyone's on edge. It's chaos, but what else is new at Wuthering Heights? Later, Catherine and Nellie have a heart-to-heart, and Catherine drops a bombshell. Edgar proposed to her, and she said yes. Nellie's like, girl, are you sure about this? And Catherine's like, of course. He's rich, he's cute, and he's nice. But then Catherine starts spiraling, admitting that even though Edgar's great on paper, Heathcliff is her soulmate. Yup, she straight up says Heathcliff is like her other half, the peanut butter to her jelly, the Corito to her Asuna. But marrying Heathcliff? Out of the question. He's poor, unpolished, and stuck in Hindley's shadow. Catherine's all, it would degrade me to marry him, and Nellie's sitting there like, sis, you did not just say that. What Catherine doesn't know is that Heathcliff overhears this whole convo. Yup, every single word. The minute she says marrying him would be degrading, he dips. Poof. Gone. No goodbye, no explanation, just a full-on ghosting move. Catherine realizes too late that he's been eavesdropping, and she's immediately shook. She's running around in the rain, calling his name like a Disney princess in distress, but Heathcliff is long gone. Fast forward a few days, and Catherine's losing it. She's sick, she's crying, and she's making everyone miserable. Edgar's trying to play supportive boyfriend, but he's clearly in over his head. Catherine's emotional storm is as dramatic as the moors outside, and Nellie's left to clean up the mess, again. At this point, you can feel the foreshadowing thick in the air. Heathcliff might be gone, but his shadow looms large, and you just know the dude's gonna come back someday with all the vengeance energy of a final boss fight. So, that's where we're at. Catherine's engaged to Edgar, but clearly still hung up on Heathcliff, Hindley's circling the drain, and Wuthering Heights is a bigger mess than a flipped Monopoly board. Stay tuned, because the chaos is only getting started. Alright, fam, buckle up, because chapters 10, 11, and 12 of Wuthering Heights take us straight into the kind of messy drama that would make even the most chaotic reality TV shows look like a calm yoga retreat. We're talking love triangles, toxic vibes, people losing their minds, literally, and Heathcliff making a surprise comeback like a boss-level antagonist who's been grinding in the shadows. So, our boy Lockwood, aka the Outsider, is still chilling at Thrushcross Grange, listening to Nellie Dean spill all the tea about the people at Wuthering Heights. At this point, Nellie's hitting us with the major updates, and it's clear that things have gone from kind of problematic to full-blown disaster. We pick up after a time skip of several years, and Nellie casually drops the bomb that Heathcliff has been MIA. Like, he just straight up disappeared. Catherine's been living her best fake-it-till-you-make-it life at the Grange, married to Edgar Linton, who is the human equivalent of plain toast. He's nice and all, but let's face it, the dude has the emotional depth of a puddle. Catherine's loving the stability but still missing that Heathcliff-level chaos in her life, even if she won't admit it. You just know she's secretly bored. But then, plot twist, Heathcliff shows up out of nowhere, and let me tell you, he's leveled up. This guy went from scrappy street kid to full-on mysterious heartthrob. He's tall, dark, and dripping with revenge energy. Think of him as if Sasuke from Naruto walked into the room post-time skip, all broody and way too hot for his own good. Catherine's reaction? She's absolutely losing it, like, oh my god, Heathcliff. You're back. She's clearly thrilled, but you can tell this is not going to end well. Edgar is less than thrilled. He's not dumb, he can feel the vibe shift the second Heathcliff walks into the room. But Edgar's not exactly a fighter. He's more like, I'm going to sit here quietly and hope this all works out. Spoiler, it won't. Meanwhile, Heathcliff starts laying the groundwork for his revenge plan like he's playing 4D chess. He's not here to make friends, he's here to make people suffer. First, Heathcliff starts hanging out at Wuthering Heights, which is still a complete nightmare thanks to Hindley, who's now officially off the rails. Hindley's been drinking himself stupid ever since his wife died, and Heathcliff's like, cool, I can work with this. He starts gambling with Hindley, knowing full well that Hindley's bad at it and will end up losing everything. Heathcliff's basically speedrunning his way to owning Wuthering Heights, and Hindley's too drunk to notice. It's savage. Meanwhile, back at the Grange, Catherine's acting like Heathcliff's return isn't a big deal, but she's lying to herself and everyone else. She's thrilled to have her chaotic soulmate back in her life, but she's also married, so now she's trying to play both sides. And let's just say, that strategy is about as stable as a Jenga tower. Edgar's not blind, he knows Catherine's feelings for Heathcliff haven't gone anywhere, and the tension in the house is palpable. Then, Heathcliff takes things up a notch and starts flirting with Isabella, Edgar's younger sister. Isabella's the sheltered, naive girl who's way too trusting for her own good. She falls for Heathcliff hard, which is exactly what he wants because, let's be real, Heathcliff doesn't actually like her. This is pure revenge mode. He's thinking, if I can't have Catherine, I'll destroy her life by ruining her sister-in-laws. It's petty on a whole new level. Catherine, predictably, loses her mind over this. She's like, how dare you flirt with Isabella? Heathcliff claps back with, why do you care? You're married, remember? Boof. The tea is scalding. Catherine's jealousy is off the charts, and the whole situation turns into a toxic mess of emotions. She wants Heathcliff to be loyal to her, but she also doesn't want to leave Edgar. It's like she's trying to keep both her comfort zone and her chaos fix, and it's obviously not working. Things hit a boiling point in Chapter 11 when Edgar finally grows a backbone. One day, Heathcliff shows up at the Grange, acting like he owns the place, and Edgar's like, alright, enough of this nonsense. He tells Catherine to choose between him and Heathcliff, which, let's be honest, was never going to go smoothly. Catherine, being the drama queen she is, goes full reality TV meltdown. She locks herself in her room and refuses to eat, basically saying, if you don't stop fighting, I'll starve myself and it'll be all your fault. It's emotional blackmail at its finest. Meanwhile, Isabella is still crushing on Heathcliff, and Nellie tries to warn her, like, girl, don't. He's bad news. But Isabella's in too deep and won't listen. She's convinced Heathcliff loves her, which is laughable because, at this point, Heathcliff's made it pretty clear he's just using her to mess with Edgar and Catherine. Then we get to Chapter 12, and oh boy, things go from bad to worse. Catherine's mental health takes a nosedive. She's full-on hallucinating and talking about how much she misses the wild moors and her carefree days with Heathcliff. It's like she's spiraling into a Hamilton-style breakdown, complete with dramatic monologues about lost dreams and unfulfilled love. Nellie tries to calm her down, but Catherine's too far gone. She's stuck in her head, torn between her love for Heathcliff and her life with Edgar. While Catherine's losing it upstairs, Heathcliff and Isabella are making moves downstairs. Heathcliff convinces Isabella to run away with him, which is about as bad an idea as you can imagine. Nellie finds out and tries to stop it, but it's too late. Isabella's already fallen for Heathcliff's bad boy routine, and now she's about to ruin her life. By the end of Chapter 12, everything is in chaos. Catherine's on the verge of a breakdown, Heathcliff's revenge plan is in full swing, Isabella's making terrible decisions, and Edgar's just trying to hold it together. It's like watching a slow-motion car crash where every character is making the worst possible choice, and you can't look away. So yeah, these chapters are peak Wuthering Heights drama, revenge, jealousy, and emotional chaos all rolled into one. It's messy, it's toxic, and it's addictive, like the Love Island of Gothic literature. You just know it's going to get even messier from here. Alright, squad, let's dive back into the absolute chaos that is Wuthering Heights, because chapters 13, 14, and 15 do not disappoint. It's giving high-key Bridgerton drama meets dark fantasy RPG energy with a sprinkle of everyone needs therapy, like, yesterday. By this point, we've got sick characters, toxic exes, and an unhealthy amount of brooding. It's messy, and I am here for it. So, when we pick up in chapter 13, Catherine Linton is not thriving. Girl's been sick ever since her mega meltdown about Heathcliff versus Edgar, and it's like all the life has been drained from her. She's at Thrushcross Grange, playing the role of tragic heroine perfectly. Picture her lying in bed, pale and delicate, with those moody vibes that scream, I'm in my sad girl autumn era. Meanwhile, Edgar is hovering around her, trying to be the supportive husband, but his clueless energy is so real. Like, he's loving her, but she's spiraling emotionally, and he's just, not enough. Poor guy is basically a healer in a party that needs a DPS main. While Catherine's busy being the queen of dramatic illnesses, Isabella Linton, Edgar's little sis, is living her own hot mess express life over at Wuthering Heights. Quick recap, Isabella thought it was a good idea to elope with Heathcliff, spoiler alert, it was not. Now she's stuck in what might be the most toxic relationship in all of literature. Heathcliff treats her like dirt, and she's finally catching on that maybe he's not the dark and broody love interest she thought he was. Honestly, it's like she tried to romance a villain in a dating sim, and now she's realizing there's no happy ending. Anyway, Isabella writes a letter to Nellie begging for help, spilling all the tea about how Heathcliff is the absolute worst. She's like, hey Nellie, just thought you should know that my life is a walking disaster and I'm stuck in this hellscape called Wuthering Heights. Nellie, being the real MVP, decides to visit Isabella and see what's up. So, in chapter 14, she heads to Wuthering Heights and things are awkward from the jump. When Nellie arrives, Isabella greets her like, welcome to my nightmare. She's got this bitter, sarcastic energy that's honestly kind of iconic. Isabella's clearly over everything, Heathcliff, the house, her bad choices, life in general. Nellie tries to comfort her, but Heathcliff barges in like the human storm cloud he is and ruins the vibe. He starts ranting about Catherine because, let's be real, the dude is obsessed. His one personality trait is being in love with Catherine, and he's not even subtle about it. Heathcliff starts grilling Nellie for updates on Catherine's condition, and Nellie's like, why do you care? You're literally married to someone else. But Heathcliff does not care about societal norms, personal boundaries, or, honestly, anyone's feelings. He's all, I need to see Catherine, and Nellie's trying to be the voice of reason, like, that is not a good idea, my dude. Spoiler, he doesn't listen. Jump to chapter 15, and things go full-on tragic romance mode. Nellie reluctantly agrees to let Heathcliff see Catherine, and when he finally shows up at Thrushcross Grange, the energy is intense. Catherine is still sick, but the minute she sees Heathcliff, she goes from dying damsel to full-on emotional hurricane. It's like all the love, anger, and unresolved tension between them bursts out at once. Catherine starts ranting about how he's ruined her life, but also how she can't live without him. The duality of this girl is unreal. One second, she's blaming Heathcliff for her misery, and the next, she's clutching him like he's the only thing keeping her alive. The drama is at 11. And Heathcliff? Oh man. The dude is absolutely unhinged. He's holding Catherine like she's his lifeline, and his words are just pure pain and passion. He's calling her cruel for leaving him, saying she's broken his heart, but also swearing he can't survive without her. It's like he's trying to win the most angsty speech award, and honestly, he deserves it. Their whole interaction is so over the top, it's like a live-action adaptation of the most dramatic anime episode you've ever seen. Then, Edgar walks in, and things get spicy. Catherine collapses from all the emotional turmoil, and Heathcliff, instead of being the slightest bit apologetic, just glares at Edgar like, this is your fault. Edgar's fuming, but he doesn't start throwing punches, which, honestly, shows some serious restraint. He's like, get out of my house, but Heathcliff refuses to leave until Catherine literally passes out from exhaustion. It's peak what is happening right now energy. Eventually, Nellie has to physically drag Heathcliff away, and he storms off into the night, probably to brood dramatically on the moors. Catherine's left unconscious, Edgar's seething, and Nellie's just standing there like, this job does not pay me enough for this. So yeah, these chapters are a masterclass in emotional messiness. Catherine's caught between two dudes who are both toxic in their own ways, Heathcliff's obsession is reaching new levels of wild, and Isabella is stuck in the world's worst marriage. It's dark, dramatic, and deeply dysfunctional, classic Wuthering Heights. Stay tuned, because the chaos is far from over. Alright, buckle up, besties, because chapters 16, 17, and 18 of Wuthering Heights are a rollercoaster of grief, drama, and generational trauma that hits harder than a surprise boss battle. It's like Emily Brontë looked at the chaos so far and said, you know what? Let's double it. Tragic romance? Check. Revenge plots? Double check. Family drama? It's dripping off the moors. Let's dive in. So, chapter 16 opens with some big oof energy, Catherine is dead. Yep, you heard me. Our drama queen extraordinaire has officially yeeted herself out of this mortal realm after all the angst, screaming, and brooding wore her down. She gives birth to a baby girl, also named Catherine, because creativity is overrated, apparently, before dipping, and Edgar is wrecked. The guy's sitting by her bedside, heart shattered into a million pieces, looking like he just got hit with the ultimate emotional nerf. Meanwhile, guess who's lurking outside like a rejected emo boyfriend from a mid-2000s music video? That's right, it's Heathcliff. Nellie tells him Catherine's dead, and this dude just loses it. He's not crying, he's raging, like a gamer who just got disconnected mid-rank match. Heathcliff's yelling to the sky, demanding Catherine haunt him forever. Yup, he's literally asking for a lifetime subscription to Ghost Trauma. Heathcliff is the kind of guy who doesn't just mourn, he turns his grief into a whole identity. It's both tragic and way over the top, but hey, it's Heathcliff. What did we expect? Meanwhile, baby Catherine, let's call her Kathy 2.0 to keep things straight, is vibing as a newborn, completely unaware of the mess she's been born into. Edgar is all about raising her with love and stability, which sounds sweet, but we know this story too well, peace is not an option in the Wuthering Heights universe. Fast forward to chapter 17, and the drama levels spike again. Isabella, Edgar's sister and Heathcliff's deeply regretting everything wife, decides she's had enough of the Wuthering Heights circus. After suffering through Heathcliff's grade A toxic behavior, she goes full main character energy and escapes. Yes, girl! She runs away, leaving Heathcliff and his bad vibes behind. She sends Nellie a by the way, I left and I'm not sorry letter, detailing how awful her life was. Heathcliff literally threw a knife at her during one of their fights, so yeah, her decision to bail is a no-brainer. Isabella might be the smartest person in this whole book. But let's not get too comfy. After escaping, Isabella finds out she's pregnant. Yep, Heathcliff's gonna be a dad. Honestly, the idea of Heathcliff as a parent is both terrifying and hilarious. Can you imagine him trying to give someone a bedtime story? Once upon a time, betrayal and heartbreak. The end. Anyway, Isabella's like, peace out forever, and decides to raise the baby far away from Heathcliff and his revenge-fueled insanity. Back at Wuthering Heights, things are not chill. Hindley, Catherine's hot mess of a brother, is spiraling even harder. Dude's drinking himself into oblivion and raging at everyone. Heathcliff, of course, is thriving off Hindley's self-destruction like a true villain, slowly taking control of the house through shady financial moves. By now, Wuthering Heights is less of a home and more of a villain lair where Heathcliff reigns supreme. The place is bleak, hostile, and full of bad vibes. Then we jump ahead to chapter 18, and Kathy 2.0, Edgar's daughter, is now 13. She's basically a Disney princess in the making, bright, adventurous, and super sheltered. Edgar's been keeping her at Thrushcross Grange, far away from the toxic drama of Wuthering Heights. Kathy grows up thinking the world is sunshine and rainbows, but you know that's about to change. Her curiosity is like a ticking time bomb, and it's only a matter of time before she gets sucked into the Wuthering Heights vortex. So one day, Edgar has to go on a road trip to check on his sister Isabella, who's been raising her son, spoiler, Heathcliff's kid, all on her own. Edgar tells Kathy 2.0 to stay home and chill, but like any rebellious teenager in a Gothic novel, she does the exact opposite. Kathy decides to explore the moors, because of course she does. What's the worst that could happen, right? Well, she stumbles across Wuthering Heights and meets Hareton, Hindley's son. Hareton's a few years older than her, and he's got that rough around the edges energy like a dude straight out of a YA dystopian romance. But here's the kicker, Hareton's basically been raised by wolves, or, more accurately, by Heathcliff. The poor kid is illiterate, rough-mannered, and completely unaware that he's technically Kathy 2.0's cousin. Small world, huh? Kathy, being a little sassy and bougie thanks to her Thrushcross Grange upbringing, starts roasting Hareton for his lack of education. Hareton, understandably, is not having it. Their first meeting is full of insults and bad vibes, but you can feel the enemies to lovers potential brewing. It's classic we hate each other now, but just wait energy. Meanwhile, Edgar comes back from visiting Isabella and brings some bad news, Isabella has died. Yup, another L for the Linton family. Her son, little Linton Heathcliff, because naming originality is not a thing in this book, is now Edgar's responsibility. Edgar wants to bring Linton to Thrushcross Grange and raise him alongside Kathy 2.0, but we all know Heathcliff's not going to let that happen without stirring up some drama. And that's where we leave things. Kathy 2.0 is on the verge of getting sucked into the Wuthering Heights drama, Heathcliff is still out here being the king of chaos, and the next generation is about to inherit all the messy, unresolved trauma of their parents. It's a Gothic soap opera for the ages, and you just know things are about to get even messier. Stay tuned, because this storm is far from over.